What's going on, guys? So I've been on a massive decluttering and organizing journey, and I'm absolutely determined to declutter and reorganize every single room of my home. However, there are so many things that I wish I would have known before even starting this project. So that's what we're going to talk about today. The most important things that you need to know before starting to declutter. But before we dive in, make sure you subscribe, click the like button if you enjoy this video, and let's dive in. So my first tip is to make sure that you have a plan to declutter and have a schedule. So from today moving forward, you'll have a decluttering schedule so you do it often, all throughout the year. So you don't want to wait until you absolutely have to declutter because that puts on a lot of pressure. So for example, I used to only declutter when I was moving to a new place, and that would usually be each year. So I'd be moving once a year. And so I would just schedule that one day to declutter and pack up all my stuff. However, that just puts so much pressure on. But if you actually space out decluttering throughout the year, it's not going to feel like such a big task because you'll be doing it whether you schedule it like once a week, once a month, once a quarter, and you won't have as much stuff to declutter. So what you want to do is choose one area to attack first. Decluttering creates so much mess. And so what you want to do is have a clean space that you can use to organize everything that you're going through so that you can have a space for donating, keeping, and tossing. I try not to have maybe piles just because it prolongs the process. So the only time I would really create a maybe pile is when I'm going through clothes, because I like to toss everything I'm unsure of in one pile, and then I'll try all of those pieces of clothing on just to make sure they fit. Otherwise, if it's not clothing, if it's not something that you need to see if it fits or not, then just make your decision right then and there if you're going to keep or donate it. So the next thing that you want to do is pull out all the items in that space so that you can see what you have, and then start decluttering and tossing those items in those designated piles. And then identify a location for each item that you want to keep, and then toss the rest of the items or donate them. So next, let's talk about how to identify if you should keep an item or not. So the first question that you want to ask yourself is, have you ever used that item before? So if the answer is no, do you have a plan of using that item? Because if you don't have a plan of using that item, you probably won't ever use it. And what's the point of keeping something that you're never gonna use? So it's absolutely time to start getting ruthless when you start to declutter. Now, of course, there's always exceptions to the rule. So if you haven't used an item before, maybe it's a memory item. The reason why memory items can be so hard to get rid of is because it could remind you of another person. Maybe you inherited the item. Maybe it reminds you of a certain part of life or an activity that you did. But here are the questions that you should ask yourself to see if you should keep those items. The first question is, do you need to keep all of them, or can you donate some of them? So maybe just keeping a few memory items around. And the next question you want to ask yourself is, why are you keeping the item and what purpose does it serve? It should either have a purpose or the item sparks joy. So remember those two things. It's either you need it for something or it just brings so much joy in your life when you look at that item. So the next thing that you want to do is look out for damaged items. So when you come across a damaged item, ask yourself this: are you willing to repair that item? If not, then that's going to be something that you're going to want to toss. So for example, let's say you've got some clothing that needs to be repaired. Maybe it just needs a new button. Are you going to take time to sew that button on, or is it just going to be sitting in your closet, not being used? So if you're not willing to take the time to repair those damaged items, just quickly toss them, and then that will free you up so much space. So the next question you want to ask yourself is, would you buy this item again in the future? This question tells you if you would really use the item if you kept it. So if the answer is no, then you probably wouldn't use it in the future and you might as well just donate it. So the next question you want to ask yourself is, does this item reflect how you currently see yourself? Or is it an ideal self item where you would only use that item if things changed or maybe something about you changed? So for example, maybe you've got clothes in your closet that you can't fit into currently. That would be called an ideal self item because you can't wear those clothes until you can fit into those clothes. Now, one of the downfalls of having so much clothing in your closet that you currently can't fit into is that it's going to give the illusion that you have nothing to wear because all you're going to see is all those pieces of clothing that you can't fit into. So for example, I had a closet full of clothes that I hope to fit into one day once I lost weight. And the clothing dated all the way back to high school. It took me way too long to drop the weight. And it just kept my closet cluttered with clothes that I couldn't even wear yet. But by the time I dropped 100 pounds and could fit back into the high school clothes, I didn't even want to wear them anymore because the style just didn't suit me. So the bottom line is I just wasted so much space in my closet because I was trying to just hold on to those clothes because I wanted to slip back into them someday. So if you do want to try to keep some clothes that you can't fit into right now, ask yourself if you can donate the bulk of those items and just keep one or two of your favorite pieces of clothing that you can try to fit back into instead of keeping a ton of clothes that you can't fit into. So just try to narrow it down. I know from experience it can be tough to get rid of those items, but just ask yourself, what is the actual plan that you have to be able to use those items? So the next question to ask yourself is, does this item give you joy? So if it doesn't give you joy and it's not something that you need, those are items that you want to make sure that you toss or donate. Sometimes we even keep items that hold a negative experience. So for example, if you wore a specific outfit on a breakup, that outfit, every time you see it hanging in your closet, you're going to be reminded of that breakup. Unfortunately, memories can stay with items. So every time you look at it, you're reminded of it. So those are definitely items to toss or donate. So the next question that you want to ask yourself is, does this item serve you? If it's not an absolute yes, donate it or toss it. If you can't answer that question, just donate it. Like I said before, it is time to get ruthless when you start to declutter. Now, there are so many rules that you can go by with decluttering. However, there's one that I don't agree with. I don't agree with the rule that says if you haven't used it in a year, get rid of it. Because there are some items that are going to be rarely used, but still necessary to have. So save yourself the money of having to repurchase those items. That's why I say ask yourself if you have a plan for the item because, for example, if it's only for an emergency case, you're going to want to keep that item in case you have an emergency. So like I said, some items are used all the time. Some of them are going to be used rarely. Next, we've got to talk about out-of-sight items. Those items that are neatly tucked away in drawers and in bins. Now, I would argue that out-of-sight items are rarely used. If I can't see the item, I won't be reaching for it. And oftentimes, I even forget that I even have it. So, for example, like in my closet, I would prefer to hang up everything instead of having things folded up in drawers. I still do use drawers, but those things in there are rarely used because I just never think about them because I can't see it. So if you're like me, once you're done decluttering, try to hang up most of your clothes. Or for those items that are not clothing, try to have them in sight. So for example, instead of using a bin that you can't see through or an organizer you can't see through, try to get the ones where you can see what's in there. Also, make sure that you're not storing items out of sight, just so you don't have to deal with them. For example, storing items in bins to avoid deciding if you need to keep the item or avoiding choosing a space for your item isn't decluttering. It's actually just pushing your clutter around. So decorative bins are cute to have. I know I absolutely love to have a cute decorative bin, but just make sure that the items inside are stored there for a reason and not just used to push things aside so you don't have to deal with it, because it's just moving your clutter around. Every item in your home should have a spot. So that's gonna make it so much easier when you have to put away those items, because you're gonna know exactly where those items should go. So that's gonna eliminate unnecessary clutter in the future, and it's gonna save you time and energy when it comes to looking for that specific item. For every room in your home, ask yourself, how do you want to feel when you breeze through those doors? One of the things that I absolutely love about decluttering is that it always makes me feel like I have a brand new space after I finish decluttering and reorganizing. So ask yourself, what do you want the area to look like, and how do you want it to make you feel? Because have you ever walked into a room and felt absolutely drained? That's because clutter can have an effect on your energy. So make sure that you declutter everything that's sucking the energy out of the room. So one of the biggest questions when it comes down to decluttering is, how much should you be decluttering? So in general, I would say about 50% of your items. Now, everyone has a different amount of items in their home, so it's gonna vary from person to person, but I like to say in general 50%, because people usually don't even use half the items that they have in their home. So like I was talking about before, those items that don't spark joy in your life, those items you've never even used yet, or that are tucked away that you've been getting by without, you're not even gonna miss those items. So I would say toss or donate 50%. Now for some quick closet tips. After you're done decluttering, what can be really helpful is to color code your clothing. Not only color code your clothing, but your hangers as well. It just looks more aesthetically pleasing, and it's gonna make it a lot easier to find items. Not only color coding, but setting up sections in your closet so you know where to go for each item. So for example, if you have a section for work clothes, or if you have a section for date night clothes, you'll know exactly where to go to pick out those items. And it also helps to have special hangers that you could use to hang up more than one item. So for example, you could be hanging up 5 to 6 pairs of pants or skirts, and that's gonna save you so much space in your closet instead of using one hanger to hang up each item. And it helps your closet not to look as cluttered. There are so many benefits when it comes to decluttering. You're not only creating a new and exciting space for yourself, but you're also opening up the space for new items to come in the future. And you'll also be able to see the items that you already have. So it helps you to save money so you don't repurchase items that you already own. Clutter is not only visual, but it's also mental. Decluttering will free your mind of all the unnecessary clutter. In the back of your mind, you know exactly what areas that need to be decluttered. So free your mind so you're not stressed over your clutter. Decluttering can easily become overwhelming. So make sure that you have a plan, a schedule, and don't try to do everything all at once. Choose one area to start to declutter. If you can only do 15 minutes a day, start there. But it's great to have a full day scheduled for it. Once you start decluttering, you may not even want to stop, especially when you get an extra boost of energy. Start with the easiest area first and keep on going. So just remember that it may look worse before it looks better. Don't get overwhelmed, just take it one step at a time. Make it fun by turning on upbeat music or a fun podcast to listen to. And once you declutter a space, you will see how much more positive energy your space will have. I hope these decluttering tips helped you on your journey. So until next time, I'll see you later.